and I'm pleased to introduce at this point Mr. Ryan Murray, Assistant Director of Community Research from ETC Institute. Ryan will present the results of our 2024 resident and business surveys, providing valuable insights into the needs and priorities of our community. At this time, I'd like to invite Ryan to the podium to share the findings and key takeaways from the surveys. Ryan, thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Thank you, Mayor, members of the Commission, for having me this morning. Sorry, it's usually evening when I do these, so I apologize for that. This is the first time I've had the pleasure of being here, but ETC Institute's had a long relationship with the City of Tamarac. We've done your survey for many years, probably 2 decades now. Our owner and CEO, my mentor, is Chris Tatham. He's the one that originally started this project with the city. And you all are always the first community he brings up when he talks about our presence in South Florida, which has grown to be so large that, in fact, we run a benchmarking survey within the state of Florida every year just for all of the clients that we have in this region. So we're happy to be here. We've been around for about 40 years. I've got a really long presentation, tons of slides, more of a deliverable for both the commission as well as staff. I'm going to move relatively fast through the slides, but please feel free to stop me. Let me know if you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to stay on for just another moment or so. One of the best things about being able to come here and actually provide these presentations in person is to first frame up the lens for which I review the results. And really, as the consultant, I see this as an objective assessment of the quality of city services, how people think, feel, and see the services delivered in their community every day. It's really a snapshot in time. So we conducted the survey towards the end of last year, right during the election season, right before the election for the most part. And we want to use the survey instrument to identify ways to improve satisfaction, and we do that through baked-in survey design. And so what I mean by that is that we're actually baking in question design, and we've been doing this for years to ensure that we can utilize our important satisfaction analysis to push priorities. Now, these are just recommendations based on satisfaction and emphasis that's provided by respondents, but it's a good way to track and monitor your performance, and again, to kind of focus in on a few improvement areas every survey cycle. In terms of methodology, it was a 7-page survey, same as in prior years. City of Tamarac can still withstand a longer survey, where in some communities we've moved or pushed to shorter surveys for response rate reasons. We administer that survey with multimodal methodology. We mail that survey first to a random sample of households within each one of your commission districts. We then follow up via postcard, text message, email, social media ads until we reach 300 completed surveys within each one of the commission districts for a total of 1,200 completed surveys across the city. For a community that's about 80,000 people, about 30,000 households, that's a huge sample size. Just to put it into perspective, the city of San Antonio conducts a survey with us every other year. We do 1,067 completed surveys in their community. So overall, your margin of error is lower than our San Antonios, our Dallas clients, our Kansas City, Missouris, about 3%, and I'm going to use just kind of an about. It's really 2.7% of the 95% level of confidence, which means that if we were to go out, get 300 surveys from each one of your commission districts 100 times, 95 out of 100 times, I should get these same results, plus or minus our margin of error of, again, about 3%. So 50% of people said yes to a question or a survey this time. 95 out of 100 times, I should see yeses going up to about 53%, or no's going up to about 53%. And so there's that kind of plus or minus margin of error on either side of those results. When we talk about methodology, it's important to note the randomness of the methodology, which helps ensure the scientific integrity of the results, but it's really important to ensure geographic and demographic distribution within the results. Tamarac is a very diverse community that has a very unique geography. We need to ensure that we've represented that accurately, which hopefully the map shows that we've done that. In the demographic section of the survey, we've also ensured that your results closely or accurately match the census statistics for the city of Tamarac as well. So not only do we have a random sample methodology with good distribution geographically, but also demographically, we have results that accurately portray the community. When we talk about what to know, if you leave here with nothing else, I hope you understand that overall satisfaction is really high, both for your community and your business survey reports. You perform well above national and regional averages, really setting the standard for core services in many key areas. And we develop opportunities for improvement, which includes traffic flow as well as a couple other items this year. Traffic flow is one of those items high-performing communities see often. It's one of those areas that we know thriving communities have traffic. We know in this part of the country specifically, or this part of Florida regionally, it's a regional issue. It's not just the city of Tamarac with traffic issues, it's everybody in the area with traffic issues. So we do expect that particular item, and in lieu of that being a top priority, we're happy to see that for high-performing organizations, because it's not your fire or EMS, it's not your Broward County partnerships, it's not your schools that are high priorities for improvement, it's really traffic flow. And so when we look at the overall category of city services as it relates to quality of life, traffic flow is one of those items that's nice to have low traffic flow, but an area that we know to be a common high priority for high-performing organizations. When we talk about surveys, again, it's a snapshot in time. It's a perceptions-related survey. We know not all respondents have firsthand perspectives with each one of these particular items, but as you can see, most of the areas that were assessed were directly comparable to our benchmarking. The city performed well above our benchmarking in many of those key areas. Just a little bit of interpretation. Items in blue out to the left are going to be more positive. Moving over to the right in red, more dissatisfied or below average or poor ratings for these charts. And that should be kind of the color breakdown of all the charts that I showed today. When we talk about overall quality with major overall satisfaction with the major quality of city services, we'll see this slide again. I'm highlighting the items that were top priorities for improvement this year. The important satisfaction analysis draws out items that are below average satisfaction and above average emphasis or importance placed on them. Flow of traffic in the city is the item with some of the highest levels of dissatisfaction. Enforcement of codes, quality of our streets, and maintenance areas are some of those other higher priority areas that were joined by flow of traffic into the 2024 survey. When we talk about perceptions of safety, residents overall feel extremely safe in the community as a whole, regardless of the situation. So walking, driving in the city, in commercial and retail areas, in neighborhoods during the day and at night, a majority of respondents feel safe. 4 of those areas were directly comparable to our benchmarking database. You rated above the US average and Florida average in each of those, or excuse me, all but one of those areas. When we talk about feelings for taxes, and again, more perception-related items, a majority of respondents indicate that, hey, I feel good about the level of services or the amount of taxes that I'm paying. That encompasses the light green, dark blue, and blue ratings there. Only about 1/4 of respondents indicated that taxes are just too high for the quality of services I'm receiving, and about 1 in 5, a little bit more, indicated that they rent or don't pay taxes or they're just not sure. And so again, just perception-related items here, a majority of folks indicating, hey, we're getting pretty good service for the level of taxes that I pay. And when we talk about historical results, one of the reasons that we continue to do these surveys is to ensure that we're able to track your performance over time. And so when we talk about performance over time, it's important to note that we do these surveys every year with communities across the country. Over the last 3 to 4 years, really since COVID, ratings have dropped. Your last survey says 2021. It was right at the end of 2020 into 2021. So it was just right as the beginning of COVID. And you can see a little bit of a dip from 9 to 21 and then again to 2024. The big story here is that of the 14 areas that were assessed, only 4 saw a significant decrease in overall satisfaction, which suggests that our results are relatively consistent year over year. When we talk about some of our largest increases in trends from 2021, we see availability of public art, quality of stormwater management, efforts to involve the community, and fire safety education programs. From 2009, city efforts to involve the community again topped that list with appearance of city parks, canals, outdoor athletic fields, and availability of walking and biking trails. So a lot of good quality of life items, a lot of recreation-related items or public involvement-related items topping the list in terms of positive increases from the past. When we talk about benchmarking, we're now really comparing or providing some contextualization to the overall results. As I mentioned earlier, we saw some declines in the overall major categories of services, but when you look at your results compared to that unique Florida average that we create, as well as our national average, you're well above the average in each one of those areas that are shown up above. When we look at comparative strengths compared to our benchmarking database of both the US and Florida averages, you can see here that you're well above in many core areas. And in terms of comparative weaknesses, just 2 areas were significantly below either of those averages when you look at the entirety of all the areas that we were able to compare. We also do something a little bit unique for the city of Tamarac. We develop a South Florida average There's a lot of text on this screen. The big thing here is that we have the following communities out to the left included in this new average. What we're really doing is taking a heightened look at your results compared to those who complete surveys with us or have over the last couple of years. When we talk about comparative strengths to that South Florida average, that specific average of my clients, talk about quality of stormwater management, flow of traffic in the city is above that regional average. So again, I want to note a high priority for improvement is flow of traffic, but you're performing better than the average of most of our local clients, which is a big note there. When we talk about some of our comparative weaknesses, we see Tamarac rated below the South Florida average in only 7 of the 38 areas, so less than 1 out of 5 of those items. And when we talk about opportunities, again, back to the important satisfaction analysis, we've already seen this particular slide, and as I mentioned earlier, the overall analysis is really drawing out items below average satisfaction and above average importance in a forced ranking question. We can see that a few of our top items towards the top there are some of the most important items for respondents, indicating, hey, we should emphasize these over the next few years. The big note here on this type of analysis is that items towards the bottom are items that are unlikely to have a major impact on overall quality of services or overall satisfaction moving forward. It also suggests that we have overall high ratings in many of those areas, so it's unlikely that we'll increase satisfaction in those areas to such a degree that it'll have overall impacts. But if we focus on the areas at the top, overall satisfaction is relatively low, overall emphasis is relatively high. It should give us an opportunity to help begin to push satisfaction in other areas by focusing on areas highlighted in red above. I've also highlighted quality of police services primarily because it's got a high important satisfaction rating, but I also like to note in these particular instances, respondents are extremely satisfied with this service. They just want you to continue to emphasize it. We'll see similar perceptions or we'll see similar ideas in the business survey results where businesses move to the city of Tamarac because it's a safe community, low crime rate. They're going to stay here because of that. They want you to continue to emphasize police services because of how important it is to them, not because of a degradation or a low grade in terms of satisfaction. I showed the map at the beginning. Based on those areas that we shade here, these are census block groups. Based on the number of dots within each one of those areas, we'll take the mean rating and we'll shade the area to give a little bit of a better breakdown in terms of where satisfaction might be deviating the most. I've highlighted just the top priorities for improvement in this particular instance. This is the flow of traffic in the city. We can see most of the responses throughout the city are relatively neutral, with some pockets of the community saying, hey, we're generally satisfied with that area. Another sign that the city's performing well in other areas is that we don't have large swaths of dissatisfaction. It's more of an inconvenience for respondents. Our second priority was enforcement of city codes and ordinances. We see a very similar attitude. When we talk about appearance of city streets, medians, buildings, and facilities, another area where performance is relatively strong, but emphasis was high. And our final one is quality of city streets, where we actually have an area that's shaded dark blue. So again, overall satisfaction is relatively high. When you talk about comparisons, you're performing extremely well. These are focus areas for the city to look at and to focus on over the next few years as it relates only to satisfaction. We talk about additional findings. Our surveys constantly find new topics or new questions that staff would like to get statistically valid data from the residents about. When we talk about communication, it's really important to understand not only where folks are getting their information, but sometimes where the most preference is as well. And when we asked about preference compared to the table that we're seeing here, Tamagram News Magazine, tamarac.org, and email blasts or newsletters were among the most preferred sources of information, and they're also the most used, which shows a lot of foresight in your communications and your staff that they're not only sending out the information where respondents are using it most, but respondents actually prefer to get information from those most utilized sources. We talk about cities' values and diversities. This was a couple of areas where we saw massive inputs or massive increases in overall satisfaction over the last few years. When we talk about overall customer service, we saw customer service as a strength, both in our benchmarking and some of our comparative analysis. Most respondents who indicated they'd contacted the city indicated they were either very satisfied or satisfied with the customer service provided by staff. That can be a very difficult issue, especially considering 1 out of 5 of these people called to complain, to file a complaint. About half were asking a question. It can be a really difficult task to ensure that our city staff are able to make sure these people are left satisfied after some of the calls that we know we're going to receive. An overall summary, Satisfaction is really high. The survey is designed to create items for improvement based on the important satisfaction analysis. Although we did see a couple of downturns, we contextualize those results with regional, national, and also our South Florida regional benchmarking, which shows that you're extremely high performing, well above those regional and national averages. I'll take any questions or pause for just a moment, or we can just jump right into the business survey results, for which I have fewer slides.
Any questions? For now, we'll do it all at once. Let's do it all at once. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So we also conducted a business survey. City of Tamarac is very unique in that you conduct a business, employee, as well as a community satisfaction survey. It's the same idea. It's an objective assessment with the delivery of city services from business leaders within the community. Not all of these people would have lived here. They might have just been a manager or an owner of a business here locally. We want to identify, again, through design features in the survey, where we can focus some of our efforts to increase overall satisfaction, and we want to really address our performance or track our performance over time. It's a much smaller survey. The business community has a much smaller time commitment to these surveys. We've really had to trim that down from 6 or 7 pages years ago to now 3 or 4 pages today. We administer it the same way. It takes a lot more phone follow-up, so we really do have to put our phone interviewers on these projects and call businesses throughout the day, throughout the evening, to ensure we're capturing those voices. It can be a really difficult project, and through our last proposal, we did suggest a little bit of a different sample size and survey grouping. So we have 204 completed surveys with a heightened margin of error of about 6.5%, 7% for these particular results. When we talk about perceptions, receptions are high. When we talk, are you overall friendly business community? Vast majority, 80% of respondents indicated yes. It's not a significant difference, but the drop in no responses is pretty high. It's about 5%, touching on our margin of error, just barely. We talk about whether or not the following were a reason why you'd move to Tamarac. Low crime rate is highlighted there because in a follow-up forced drinking question, about 52% of respondents indicated that's one of the things that's going to continue to keep them there. So similarly to our important satisfaction analysis on the community results, respondents see the value that Tamarac's providing with their police services. They want to continue to see the high level of service that is being provided continue into the future. When we talk about recommendation of the city as a place to do business or to locate your business, again, almost 80% of respondents are in agreement. 1 in 5 are in disagreement. And when you're talking proportionally, it's 99-1 would either agree, abstain, or would recommend the city as a place to live versus those who would disagree with that statement. And so the proportionality there is really strong. Even if you take the neither agree or disagree and add it to the disagree, you're still looking at 88 to 22%. So a really strong proportion of the business community satisfied with the way that things are going here in the city. When we talk about business climate, most respondents say, hey, it's better, or there's been no change, but it's good. And again, proportionality, you're looking at 13% compared to the vast majority of responses in blue. So you're looking at a really small proportion of folks that are saying no change, but poor or worse, compared to about 1 in 5 who said don't know. When we talk about physical appearance of the area where the business is located, a slight decline matching some of the results from the community survey. When we talk about city street maintenance, median, overall appearance, really just kind of a bulking of the average responses versus a deviation from excellent and good to poor. And when we talk about overall satisfaction with some of our quality of services, the overall ratings remain high, and we'll look at some comparisons in a moment, but they are down from prior years. Now, context is really important. The time of year in which we conducted the survey is important, and some of the tone or attitude of our discourse over the last few years can really have an impact on our perceptions. And so looking at this as a perceptions question, if we turn on the news and we hear negativity, if we hear inflation's rising, if we hear our communities are less safe, it can have a massive impact on some of these questions. What we've seen is that historically the city's always performed relatively high in many of these key areas, and now looking at overall satisfaction with major categories of services, none of the 12 areas that were assessed year over year saw an increase in the sum of very satisfied and satisfied responses. But when we look at benchmarking, we can see that you're still setting the standard for the delivery of core services in many key areas compared to Florida and US averages. Now, not enough South Florida communities conduct business surveys with us for us to create a South Florida average for these, but you can see from our national and regional surveys, our Florida and US surveys, that you're performing extremely well in many key areas. We talk about perceptions. Again, you're performing very well, but below average in some of these areas. So overall satisfaction is high. It's remained high. relative perceptions are fairly mixed in the 2024 results. When we talk about opportunities, it's the same exact type of analysis, rating satisfaction, and then emphasis. Police services right there in the middle. It's one of those areas with slightly elevated dissatisfied responses, but extremely high still overall satisfaction. It's the main item respondents want us to emphasize. Going back to the first slide that I showed, it's the reason that they've moved their business here or choose to locate their business here. It's the reason they're going to stay here over the next 5 to 10 years is overall feeling of safety, overall safety of their business. And it's the number one priority. It's not even particularly close to any of the other items. Overall satisfaction is really high with everything, particularly with everything except for the availability of public transportation. But overall emphasis on that item is not nearly as high as some of the other items, which means if we were able to increase satisfaction with public transportation, it's unlikely to have a massive impact on the perception of business leaders. Unlike increasing overall enforcement of city codes or specifically making sure that residents and business owners know what we've done to either improve or continue the high quality of police services we're offering. Again, additional findings, some additional questions that are asked within these business surveys. We're asking respondents to indicate, are you considering any of the following in the next 12 months? The best part about this slide is more folks were interested in growing their business, hiring more staff, expanding, or none of those options. Now, kind of looking in mind, closing, relocating outside of Tamarac were also options on this list. Fewer than 5% of respondents selected that. When we talk about what items businesses will have the most positive or most potential positively impact on the future of the economy. Types of businesses selected at high rates were really retail, restaurant, higher education, health, medical focus. After that, we see a little bit of a drop off, fewer than 3 out of 10 respondents selecting anything, all the way down to manufacturing, which is commonly at the bottom of these lists. We do a lot of comp plan surveys. Respondents and residents and communities just don't see the manufacturing as that new or positive impact on our business community moving forward. Now, subject matter experts, planners in the community, commissions can lead us to those right conclusions, but that is typically going to be a common perception of respondents. We talk about some of the best ways for the Tamarac to communicate with you. We see emails similar to our community survey. So if we have those business licenses or if we're asking businesses to register, grabbing those emails is going to be fantastic. And overall, again, satisfaction is high. We've seen downturns. We've seen that nationally. We're expecting a bit of a downturn and a bump to our benchmarking in this upcoming year, which will begin in just a few months. Opportunities for improvement exist, but aren't uncommon, and in fact are really just an emphasis on what you're doing well and a desire to continue to see that done at a high level. With that, I'll take any questions. I've got copies of the reports. Anything I can't answer truthfully and honestly today, I'll take back to the office and I'll get Tanya, my staff member, contact a written response back for commission.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Good morning. Question, you said there were 2 areas that were below average. What 2 exactly are those?
In terms of the overall benchmarking on the community survey compared to the national average?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, I think it was Florida average, you said.
Florida average. They're in our executive summary. So the 2 significant areas where the city is a good place to work and visibility of police in neighborhoods. Being a bit of a bedroom community, I looked at historical results on a good place to work. They're historically in that same area generally. Florida average went up slightly. Your results kind of stayed about where they were.
Okay, so it wasn't a change. It was just that Florida got more employment?
It is a significant difference, but yes, maybe not a significant change.
And apparently we addressed that because we're hiring 9 more police officers, so that will soon be addressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
But
just,
the employment part, I did ask if we could have a higher university, but you said you said there was no room for that. Because I think a university will bring young people in who spends a lot of money. Maybe we should look into that.
We have a strategic planning meeting coming up shortly, Vice Mayor.
Commissioner Wright?
Just to follow up on those questions, overall satisfaction for police services was 73%. However, the visibility of officers was below the average you mentioned, and I have that in my notes. Going back to those 9 new officers, I was looking at the BSO report, and I'm seeing that we have the same amount of officers from August as we have now, and I think our budget, October budget required us to get those 9 officers. So if you can give us an update on when are we going to have those 9 officers and how is the process going?
Yes, Commissioner, I just had this conversation with the chief, a couple days ago. They are urging the HR department for Broward Sheriff's Office to prioritize these recruitments, and I think we have a commitment for number of, for lack of a better word, rookies and 1 or 2 seasoned police officers coming into Tamarac in the next 2 to 3 months.
City Manager, I am seeing the captain walking. I'm not sure if he's walking to come up.
I'm sure he's
So
going
if-
to confirm what
okay.
I said.
If you don't mind, then
Yeah.
we'll have
And if I might just
Captain
quickly-
Cooper, go ahead, while Captain Cooper's walking.
Respondents really don't understand how visible police should be, and Chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been told by many chief, and I'm a commissioner in my own city, I've been told by my own chief, if we're visible in your neighborhoods, it's unlikely that we're keeping you that safe. And so I've been told that by many police chiefs. I truly believe that. I also know that respondents can't just be pasted to their front windows every day. So how visible should our police be? So I just want to let you all know, just anecdotally, what I've seen professionally, and then personally as a commissioner myself.
Captain Cooper?
I like his response. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner, and our guests. So, yeah, the city manager is actually correct. So, as of this Saturday, we are receiving 2 additional deputies to our staff. As of, I believe the date is January 28th, somewhere around that. Next week, we're going to receive a certified new hire. I've been working immensely with our HR department to bring on board additional deputies, additional staff, to satisfy the 9 additional deputies that you all have approved. I want to remind you, however, so we're talking about law enforcement officers, and just as a rule of thumb, we want the best of the best. While we are competing with other agencies throughout the entire county, tri-county area, we still want the best of the best. So, while I do ask for your patience throughout this process, we are being very meticulous on people that we do hire into our agency. So just keep that in the back of your heads as you consider the process. Nonetheless, we are moving forward in the right direction with acquiring the additional staff. And as you'll see toward the end of this month, moving forward, going toward next month, bless you, we are onboarding new additional staff.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One more question. In terms of streets, I saw that neutral response came from 2 communities what usually have the highest taxpayers, Woodmont and Woodlands. Based on the response that I saw, if you can take me back to that slide, just a quick question. Why would you say those communities would have, a different need?
I'm sorry.
When you showed it in the map.
Yeah, great point. And so what we're looking at is based on the initial chart, this one, we're seeing an average based on the number of responses in each one of those areas. So first,
No, it's a different switch. It's a different map.
for the streets. So this is just showing approximately how many responses are going to be within each one of those shaded areas. And the reason I show this first is just context, to make sure that we know that we're looking through that lens with a little bit of a grain of salt, just to understand that it's not the vast majority of people. It doesn't hold true to our overall margins of errors.
Here it is.
But this is flow of traffic, or did you
No,
want to go
the
to
streets,
maintenance?
Yeah, no, the streets. It was the street stuff. Here it is. See? Here it is. Appearance of city streets in medium. I think one of them showed Woodlands. Next slide.
Next slide, this is the quality.
Quality of streets, sorry, that's the word, quality
Yep.
of streets. You see those communities. There was neutral in those communities, and other places there was a higher satisfaction.
Yeah, so likely what is going on there, and again, with smaller sample sizes, the variability can increase. But what we're looking at is that there's likely a higher concentration of dissatisfaction there. If you see, the entire community for the most part is satisfied. So what's likely happened is that higher concentrations of dissatisfied respondents locate there. They're being blended to neutral with the sprinkling of satisfaction. And so it's being offset to yellow basically because that's probably where the largest levels of dissatisfaction exist. Not necessarily because streets are terrible there, but just that's where the respondents live who had those perceptions.
Okay, just wanted to bring it to the city manager's attention as well.
Yeah, great point. And these can be really helpful for staff who are kind of looking at things. If you know that outside of your jurisdiction, just to the east of that southern or to the west of that southern yellow box, if you know that there's a lot of construction there or poor streets there, it could be kind of bleed over from another community's issues bleeding into the perceptions of your community. And so staff can really give us a little bit more insights to some of that. The maps can be really helpful. I like to show some of them to display here because commissioners also have really great insights out of these. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Patterson?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that we did this right before strategic planning. I think it's going to be helpful in terms of, just identifying areas of improvement and/or expanding our services. The only question I had for you was, I didn't really hear a whole lot about our analyzation and/or assessment of our youth, and just kind of what that looks and feels like. Obviously, our demographic has changed tremendously over the last several years. And so I think, I'm not sure if we do this annually, but I think in terms of every 2 years, okay? So I would just ask that the next time we do it, that we take a look a little closer at the, youth demographic. I'm not sure if it's a matter of doing an assessment within that demographic or getting some questions relevant to that demographic, but that would be my only ask, I think, moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, great point, Commissioner. We do ask a question, 26, to ensure that we're capturing the voices of households with youth, but because everybody's an adult, we typically haven't historically focused on that. I think this year we might have asked beyond the age question one additional one, but a definite note for me to bring to staff for next time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I know a lot goes into surveys and studies and all that kind of stuff. I also think it's sometimes difficult to capture everything you need in the way a question is written. So if you're asking, how do you feel about city streets? Well, what do you mean? Do you mean, is it the lighting on the street? Is it, I'm touching the third rail, parking on the street? Is it how wide the city street is? Is it the fact that it's been paved or not paved lately? So it's hard when we don't drill down further. And I know that's not the purpose of your survey. I know you ask how people feel about our parks, if there's enough parks, is there enough amenities for people to use to go to kids and adults and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's not a drill down. And that would be something I guess we would discuss further at strategic planning if we need a survey to go out for further drilling down on certain things that maybe the commission wants to achieve. I know that there are certain things we've been talking about going out for drill down surveys for things in the city to get a little bit more response. I am curious though, and I know you don't have it here, but you had I don't knows, right? And you didn't include them in your analysis. So I don't know how that also affects whether it's a positive or negative, brings it to a neutral. As you respond to Commissioner Wright's comment, it's a neutral for that community, which is that a fair representation then when we're seeing a survey like here? So maybe we should also be seeing the survey showing exactly how that community shows it. All of the communities that you have highlighted, we should probably get a true drill down to them. So we know that Woodlands is really upset about this. Kings Point area is really upset about this. Plum Bay is like this. It appears that Sable Palm, Central Park, they might be a little happier than maybe their neighbors over at other communities in Mainland's Aid or over to Tamarac Village, Lake South, all that kind of stuff. We don't know really how to focus attention to some of our resources then, because if you look at it in overall, everybody's just a little bit less happy than they were last year. And I kind of admit to you, reviewing this over the past few days, my heart's been crushed because we're going down, not just from last survey, from the survey before, the survey before, and the survey before. And then we don't have in here the true why. And yes, we need to perform better. How do we perform better? And what is it that we can do to get these results high? We should be proud we're still good. And yes, when you reach a level you expect, but not a continual down, down, down.
Yeah.
So
We've seen a lot of that in our benchmarking as well. If we stacked our benchmarking, we'd see a similar stepping stone. As an elected official, you never want to see performance down, and you're exactly right with the contextualization. What is it about that community that's causing issues? Did you hit a pothole coming out of work in a different city, and that caused you consternation when you opened up the mail and found your survey there? We can definitely try to help staff to drill down. We have geolocation on all of our responses, so we'll definitely assist staff as much as possible. If staff is interested in any drill down surveys, we can first look at our data to see if we could assist to try to save you some funding or resources there, and if not, we can either assist or provide some information that might be able to.
I'd appreciate that. I think with what we've got, let's try to drill it down so we can have a better focus on where we need to do things. My colleagues have already done their tour of the different, of their districts, and I'm going to be doing the full city tour because I don't want to repeat some of the places where they've been. And we've been doing this since before I came on the commission 14 years ago. The teams have always gone out and looked at what's going on in the communities, so the commission knows how to better help, and this would be a very useful tool. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
And you said you were a commissioner.
Very small community, so I don't like to bring it up too often, but similar issues in Missouri, just right outside of Kansas City.
Well, thank you for your public service
Yeah,
as well.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, my commission.
City manager.
Madam Mayor, I want to thank Ryan, Commissioner Murray, for helping us with this survey. And I also want to recognize Ms. Tanya Sterling. She led this effort, and the rest of the city team conducting this year's survey. So we're looking forward to next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. And
Mayor.
Commissioner Murray,
Tanya.
be proud. It doesn't matter if you're a city of 10 or 10 million. Be very proud.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thank you all. Have a great week.